Okay, so the first thing we're gonna talk about today is trig identities. So first I'm gonna talk about the quotient identities. So the first one would be um, tangent. So I'm gonna use x because I think it's easier. So tangent x is gonna be equal to sine x over cosine x. Okay, and then the other one we have is cotangent x, which is the reciprocal of this. So this would be cosine x over sine x. So these things we have to memorize. Okay, so these are the quotient identities, and then we have the reciprocal identities. The first one I'm gonna talk about is cosecant x. This is the same thing as 1 over sine x. Can you see it? Let me write it here. 1 over sine x. Okay, and then the other one we have is secant x, which is equal to 1 over cosine x. Okay, now this you can flip them. So for example, cosecant, you can flip the sine with the cosecant, so you can have sine x is the same thing as 1 over cosecant x. And then the same thing here on the secant, so you can have cosine x is equal to 1 over secant x. So this we're going to be using in order to simplify problems and solve them. Don't forget, on the bottom of the video I'm gonna post a link so you guys can practice. This will be the first thing we're gonna do. Okay, the other ones, let me talk about this one. These are the Pythagorean identities. The first one is gonna be sine squared x plus cosine squared x is equal to 1. Oops. Okay, so sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals to 1. The other one we have 1 plus tangent square. So 1 plus tangent square x is equal to secant square x. And then the last one would be 1 plus cotangent square. 1 plus cotangent square x, that's a plus, is equal to cosecant square x. Cosecant square x. So now remember, this is the same thing. If you have sine square plus cosine square x is equal to 1, we can also move the cosine square to this side to have sine square equals 1 minus cosine square. So let me do it here so you guys can see. So for example, I can have sine square x is equal to 1 minus cosine square x. So see, this is the same thing. So you can flip them, or I can also say um, 1, well, we have this one, sine square plus cosine square x is equal to 1. Now sine square x, if I move the cosine to this side, subtract cosine to both sides, then I end up with sine square x equals to 1 minus cosine square x. If I leave the cosine square here, so let me do it here. So cosine square x is equal to, subtract the sine, so you have 1 minus sine square x. And the same goes with this. For example, on this one, 1 plus tangent square x equals secant square x. So this could be the same thing as, I have space here. Let's work with this one. 1 plus tangent square x equals to secant square. I can say 1 equals secant square x minus tangent square x. And then this one, I can say 1 equals cosecant squared minus cotangent. So it's just a matter of flipping them. So let's review. So tangent x equals sine over cosine. Cotangent x equals cosine x over sine x. And again, I'm using the x because I think it's easier to memorize, but most of the books and most of the people use the theta, which is this one here. But I don't like to use it. But it's the same thing. So tangent x sine over cosine. Cotangent x equals cosine over sine. And then if we go here, the reciprocal identities, cosecant x is equal to 1 over sine. Secant x is equal to 1 over cosine x. And then, like I said before, this one, if you flip them, you get, instead of cosecant equals, you put sine equals 1 over cosecant. So they just flip. The same thing with the secant equals 1 over cosine. So if you put cosine x, if you flip this two, you get cosecant x equals 1 over secant x. Okay? These are the one of the bases for calculus. So you guys have to have this memorized in order for all the problems to be easy. So remember, check below on the video, and I'm gonna post some worksheets so you guys can do. Okay.